All right, I guess I'm live recording. So, back to Fiddle Jam live. Last week we were talking about little tricks you can do to solo over 3-chord songs, the 1, 4, and the 5. And you don't have to be a genius in every. You don't have to be a genius on every scale, on every note. It helps to know those things, but you can just pick the important ones out. So let's cover that a little bit and see where it goes this week. So I think we were working with the key of G last week. And the G chord, the 1 chord is G, B, Ds everywhere. So that makes up the G chord, the 1 chord. The 4 chord, G, A, B, C, is C. And the C chord is C, E, G. And you should have these things memorized. So G chord is G, B, D, C chord is C, E, G. On the site, I have some studies on these things and how to memorize them easy. It's a handy dandy chord speller system. You can check that out at fiddlejaminstitute.com. There's all kinds of things in the store, and if you join as a member, you see a couple hundred lessons about this stuff and other things. The 5 chord, the 3rd chord in the series of 3-chord songs, is D chord in the key of G. All right. So in last week we tried to do the blues, which uses these 3 chords in its most basic form, and how to jam over the chords and just change up 1 note at a time here and there as an aiming point. I'm ahead there. So over the 1 chord, the G, you can use the blues scale, which doesn't fit the chord very well. It's got clashes and bangs because the chord is major and the scale is minor. I got a guitar here I could probably strum. Get it on here. There's a G chord. I just played the arpeggio of G, but the blues scale, that note is clangy, isn't it? I'll hit the chord again. There's the flat 5th, the devil's hook. D works good because there's a D in the chord. As does G. But the B is B flat in the blues scale. So it clashes and bangs a bit, but that's the cool part. Alright? So, even though there's a B in the chord and there's a B flat in the scale, we think it's cool. There's certain clashes that are cool to us and human beings for some reason. It jiggles our heart somewhere, or, I don't know, tickles our fancy somehow. We don't know. But there's certain ones that are cool and certain ones that are probably not so cool. The flat 3rd against the 3rd is one that's cool. The flat 5th against the 5th is one that's cool. Alright? And there is also the F, which is not in the chord unless there's a 7th chord. And then it's G7, and that note is also in the chord. So you see G7. 7 means there's going to be a flatted 7th in the chord. That's the 7th note of the scale, lowered. All right, I can explain a lot more about that and do on the site. The fastest way to think of that, if you need to know the flat 7 quickly, is not to go up 7 notes and then flat it a half step, is to go up the octave and down a whole step. So don't think of That's a whole lot of stuff to try and think of during a song, right? I don't recommend thinking too much ever when you're playing music. So the quick tricks are not cheating. They're actually the fastest way to the most effective way to stay in tune with spirit, right, or ideas and the muse. If you think too much, we're not as in touch with the muse, are we? That's not just in music, that's in hockey, that's in walking down the streets and driving your car. If you're thinking too much about the bug in the window, you're going to smash into the car ahead of you, right? Or if, I need to turn here, I need to put on the turn signal. After a while you drive, you just don't even think, did I go through that light? Was it red? Of course it was green when you went through, or you would have stopped. It's subconscious almost, right? That's where you need to get music too. So get this stuff to be not thinking. You should have your chords memorized, your basic ones. In this case, G, C, and D, your triads. You should know the seventh in the easiest possible way, the quickest way to get there. And that's G, up an octave, and down a whole step. So what is the flat seventh of C? C, down a whole step. It's not cheating to find the shortest route mentally. It's being the most effective for music. And D, the D chord, it's a D7, you octave, down, whole step. So C is the seventh. C, B flat, and G. So those are the notes that are in the chords in the blues progression, the basic blues 12-bar progression. So you can use the blues scale, as we started with. Sorry if I get a little wandery here. There's a lot to talk about. You can use the blues scale against the one chord very effectively. So there's an easy zone on the blues scale in G on the violin. It's open, low 2, 3, open, low 2, 3. If you start there, it's a no-brainer already. Just use the same 2 fingers, low 2 and 3, no 1. I'll do a little call and answer. You follow me. You. Da 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 da. On the D string. Dum dum dum. Da 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 da. Okay, now that was a little trickier. I'm running a little faster this week than I did last week. And you're very welcome for showing that flat 7th trick. Thanks. I just saw that flip across the screen there. Appreciate you watching. And so now we can go outside of that octave as well. What notes were those? G, B flat, C, D, F, G. Those same letter names anywhere in the violin are also fair game. B flat, low one, C, D, F, G. B flat. Now the ones on the E and the A string are not as convenient fingering. Low 1, low 2, 3, low 1, low 2, low 4. So if you're just starting out with jamming the blues for the first time, stick with the easy zone that comes from the book. I got the book here. It's been out 20 years. I got one sitting right here. Fiddle Jam, A Way Cool Easy Way to Learn How to Improvise. There it is. For sale on Amazon. For sale on my site as a digital download. You can go outside the box eventually. You'll want to do that. But keep doing those things. So now on the 1 chord. Band's cooking along. So I was just kind of jamming there on 1 chord and 1 scale. And if you want to just play along with me, I'll do a little more of that. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, just kind of vibe along with the same beat and just mess around with the scale at the same time, and you'll kind of get stuff through osmosis. I'll start it again. don't have to play exactly what I'm playing. Just play along and you'll kind of pick up stuff through osmosis. And I went out of the easy zone, didn't I? I went up in the upper octave a little bit. And I slid around that D flat D, and did a little vibrato here and there. If you don't know how to do vibrato, that's okay. Now, but the blues, the 12-bar blues doesn't stay in that one chord, the G chord, forever. 4 bars for the long change one. Then it goes to the C7 for a couple bars. So what do we do on C7? As we covered last week, if you just throw, a lot of the notes are the same. A C7 chord has a G in it, has a B flat in it, that's cool. Obviously has a C, those are the first 3 notes of the blues scale. They're in the chord, so you can't go wrong with that. D isn't such a stretch. And E, though, is not in the scale, and it is in the chord. So if you just throw in some E's there, you'll sound pretty good. There's your C. See, some E's. E. So I just threw in open E and lower E for that C7 chord, didn't I? So let's do G. G blues scale. Just play along the best you can. Don't have to copy me. C chord. Throw in that E. Back to G. So far we had G to C to G. And in the blues it's almost always the 7th chord. We just showed you the trick how to get to the 7th. Again, it's up an octave and down a whole step. It's the fastest way. So the G blues scale is a little clanky with the G 7th chord. That's okay. It's a cool kind of clash. The band, the underlying, goes to C7. You just got to add E notes to the scale. It goes back to G. G blues. Then it goes to the D chord, the dominant chord, D7. So suddenly we got another note in here. We got F sharp that's in the chord, and it's definitely not in the blues scale. But if you throw it in, you're kind of pushing it a half step here, half step there. You're pushing it the right way to do it. So we get the D chord. So in the blues scale, we have F natural. We can throw it, slide it to F sharp. I like to do A in there too. So A and F sharp are good notes to throw in. Then it goes back to G. And these little subtle tricks can take you into the land of sounding more authoritative. You don't have to know everything about everything all the time. You just need to play music and feel it and be happy about it and play on purpose. I'll say that 1,000,000 times. Try to play on purpose. This sounds almost silly. Of course I'm playing on purpose. Are you really? Are you really playing on purpose? You should be able to play, hear it in your head, and play exactly that. That's playing on purpose to me. Doesn't mean you can't do flipping things and a fast little riff here or there, but play it because you mean it. Doesn't mean it has to be hard and loud. Play it because you mean it. If it's floating like a butterfly above the music, Play it because you've heard it on your head. You're just taking dictation from the angels. That's playing on purpose. So whatever you do, do that. Even in other things outside of music. That's my advice. Play on purpose. All right? I'm going to have some bumper stickers made about that. Play on purpose. Don't steal that idea. I got it coming. So, so how far can we take this stuff? Well, the blues can definitely get more complicated, and there's more complicated versions of the blues, which you can learn on the Fiddle Jam Institute website. And how are we doing for time? Getting there. And what I just went over was the most simple version. 1, 4, 5, and the chords stretch out fairly long. Let me do that now. I'll do boogie woogie. So, G chord. 2, 3, 4. And then it goes to C chord, the 4 chord. 2, back to G for 2. And then the D chord for 2. Then the G chord for 2. You're at the beginning. Now that is the most simplified version of the 12-bar blues you can have. That's not the most common. Matter of fact, if a professional band was going to have you sit in, they wouldn't do it that simple without talking about it first. They would do what I call the common blues. It's not a term that they would use, but the 12-bar blues is more commonly moves around just a little bit more. Check it out. Here's what's called a long change blues. 1, 2 on the G, 3, 4. And it goes to C like before for 2, and back to G. Everything's the same so far. But then it goes D only once, down to C. Everybody goes, oh, I heard that, in G. And usually, then you see how the 5 chord, the D, turned back to G. That's the most common version of the blues, right there. It's just from the 5, drops on to 4, and everybody, as soon as you do that, everybody goes, oh, I've heard that, of course, a million times, whether it's blues per se, or whether it's an Elvis Presley song, or whether it's a rock song. There's been, or even jazz songs, there's tons of songs, even country songs that do that. From 5, down to 4, and G. And the 5 chord usually is stuck in there as a turnaround chord. It helps it turn around back to the top. You can probably hear that just with these 2-note pseudo chords I'm playing. So that's how the blues works. There is one even more version. They call it a quick change blues, or a fast 4 blues. That means in the second bar we're going to stick a C chord. Check it out. 1, 2, beginning G. C. Back to G. To finish out the 4. Then 2 for C like before. 2. Back to G for 2. Then D for 1. Down to C, that common thing. And the G. And the D, and you're off and running. So that goes over and over and over underneath the blues. In the key of G we're talking, right? So you have to know the 3 chords, the 1, 4, and 5 in any key. There's only 12 to know, so you're good there. It's not like a million that you have to know. You need to know the 1, the 4, and the 5 in each key. I would suggest starting with the common keys: G for fiddle, D, and A. So what is the 1, 4, 5 in the key of D? So the first note of D is D. That's the 1. So it's going to be a D chord is the first chord. D, E, F sharp, G. G would be the 4 chord. Memorize that G is the 4th of D. And the 5 chord would be A, one higher. D, E, F sharp, G, A from the D major scale, right? So you got a D chord, a G chord, and an A chord. I'm doing stuff on D. What was the 4 chord again? It was what? G. And what I'm messing around with is the root and the 5th of that chord, the 6th thrown in. You can mess around with it. That's the boogie note, we call it sometimes, the boogie woogie note, and the B. Slide it. That's the beginnings of what they call tatering. So if you're, it comes from the country saying potato, potato, potato. So if you're messing around behind, they call it tatering. It's like a countrified potato kind of reference. All right. So the beginnings of tatering is the root in the fifth and the sixth and the third. So we had D, G, D. What was the fifth of D again? D, E, F sharp, G, A, right? The root and the fifth of A is the most important two notes. Little boogie woogie. Throw in the third there. All right, so let's put all these three into the long blues. It's the simplest one that I covered earlier before I cut it today. 1, 2, D, go. D, D, 4 chord G, back to D, A, D. At the beginning now, let's do the one that goes from 5 down to 4. D. G, D, A, G, D. All right, so you learn your way hearing these things. You know the skeleton of the basic chords and how they move, and you can interpret them, and you can do, if you know the 1, 4, 5, and at least the keys of G, D, and A, the 1, 4, 5 in each of those three keys, you're off to a good start in fiddle land. I mean, other instruments favor other keys. Guitar players like the key of E because they got that low E string. Horn players like the key of B flat because it's really C to them. Horns are tuned differently. That's right, string players. You'll have to learn about that and get over it. That's the real world. And pick out, like I said earlier, a little more advanced is changing just the one note when you're soloing, using the blues scale of the main overall, the 1 chord, and just throwing in one different note. When you hit the 4 chord, throw in that one note we talked about. When you're in the 5 chord, throw in that 1 or 2 different notes. Or just go to the boogie stuff we just learned about a little bit. All right? There's much more about this on the website, the Fiddle Jam Institute. I encourage you to go there and join. It's not super expensive. You can just go for 1 month at $29.95 a month right now. Or there's courses in the school store. There's, if you join as a free member, there's a dozen lessons you can see for free on various subjects and a bunch of sneak peeks of elements of other lessons. Check it out, fiddlejaminstitute.com. Get the book on Amazon if you want. Fiddle Jam, way cool, easy way to learn how to improvise. And we'll see you next week. Every Wednesday I'm doing this. All right, bye.